earlier today, there was a mock draft put out by Dane Brugler of The Athletic. It was a 7-round mock draft, and he has lots of good insights into these draft prospects. So I want to share the Packers draft picks that he had, the Packers taking in this mock draft. And Packers Wire did a great job of just putting it all together, just the Packers picks. So I'm sharing here from PackersWire.USA today. This was posted by Zach Cruz. And so let's start off here with round 1. As you can see, pick number 1, offensive lineman Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, 6'3", 328. Brugler said this: there are several ways the Packers can attack the offensive line in the draft. One of those is to select Powers Johnson, who can provide an upgrade at center and allow Green Bay to keep Zach Tom at tackle while moving Josh Myers to guard. So that is an interesting idea. Instead of taking a tackle on offensive line in the round 1, considering the Packers already have, Rasheed Walker, who played pretty well left tackle last year, Zach Tom, who was one of the best right tackles last year in the NFL. He has the Packers going with a guy in Powers Johnson who played both center and guard in college, and so he does have that versatility. And I do think if you look at the Packers line right now, when it comes to the starters, I would say that the interior is a little weaker with Josh Myers and Sean Ryan, with John Runyon Jr., former Packers right guard, now gone. And so this is an interesting idea. I had been thinking more along the lines, if the Packers went O-line in round 1, they'd go tackle, just because it's more of a premium position. But it's not a bad idea. I think that with Tom and Rasheed at left and right tackle, I think they're fine as starters. I still think we need more depth there at tackle, and there does need to be an upgrade at guard, or at least some more talent there. So he sort of just goes away from taking a tackle and instead goes to taking a center/guard in Powers Johnson, which I'm not too opposed to. If there were safeties that most people saw as round 1 safeties, maybe I'd probably go safety. But it sounds like most people don't see safety, at least in the first round, to be the best value pick this year. Looking at the Packers past, the fact that they barely draft offensive linemen in round 1, the fact that they're so good at developing later round offensive linemen, I would rather take a center/guard probably a little bit later, but I understand the decision here. Then moving to the next pick, we have Darius Robinson, defensive lineman, Missouri, at the first pick of the Packers, Packers' first second round draft pick. And here's a breakdown from Packers Wire. Not a top-tier athlete for the edge, and is a bit of a tweener inside. Could be a versatile defensive player with potential at defensive end in the base package and inside as a pass rusher. Big-time disruptor for Missouri, 2-year team captain, produced 14 tackles for loss and 8.5 sacks during the 2023 season. There's definitely a needed edge for the Packers because when you look at Kinsley Enagbare, his injury last year, you look at Preston Smith getting older. The Packers, I think, do need to add some more players in this draft at the edge, and they did so here, at least in this mock draft, with Darius Robinson. And me personally, I'm not the biggest draft prospect kind of guy where I'm navigating all these prospects, watching all that film. It's not really what I love to do. I enjoy reading about these prospects a little bit, and I tend to focus more just on the position, my personal opinion on positional needs, things like that. And so I like to see what other people have to say here. But I think edge is a need. In round 2, it could work. Then we go on to pick number 2 in round 2 for the Packers, their second pick, Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker, who has been mocked to the Packers a ton, which makes sense considering the Packers' need at linebacker with Devondre Campbell gone, moving to a 4-3. And then here's the breakdown from Packers Wire. Elite run and hit linebacker with 3-down potential at the next level. Was dominant during 2023 season, producing 17 tackles for loss, led SEC in 8 sacks as an off-ball linebacker. Could be a day 1 starter with Quay Walker and Isaiah McDuffie and Jeff Hafley's new 4-3 base defense, and likely long-term partner with Walker in sub packages. So I honestly, when you look at Edgerrin Cooper, the Packers do need another linebacker. They have, Eric Wilson, a couple other guys, but I think we need some more depth there. Edgerrin Cooper seems to be a solid prospect, and I think that pick makes sense either way, and either pick in round 2. The thing that I do wonder about is now moving to round 3, safety round 3, Kalen Bullock. I hope the Packers take a safety in round 2 or 3. I just think that they can't, be too hesitant to snag a guy. Obviously, if they don't think he's, the talent they want, then, you pass on him. But I just think to get a guy you can pair up with Xavier McKinney in year 1, you can sort of build off that for the future years. Makes a lot of sense. The Packers still have a lack of depth at safety, So I'd rather them go round 2. So they say here about Bullock, a long, lean athlete who intercepted 9 passes and defended 24 passes at USC. Looks more like a corner. Can he play the run? Could be an odd fit with Xavier McKinney, but Packers could see McKinney as they do at all safety, with Bullock developing in the single high role. So personally, I would rather the Packers take a safety in round 2, get one of those other top-tier safeties in this draft. And when we look at PFF, where they have their safeties ranked here on their NFL draft board, they have Tyler Nubin at 31 overall. Then they have Javon Bullard at 47, Jaden Hicks at 54, and then they have Bullock all the way down at number 81. So I think I'd rather the Packers go with someone like Bullard from Georgia, maybe Nubin if he's still there, Hicks, and ''maybe get a safety a little bit earlier, in my opinion, because I think that's still a big need. Then second, third round pick, offensive tackle Caden Wallace, Penn State, 6'4", 314. Packers Wire says started 40 games at right tackle for Penn State, might have guard potential given size and length. Will give the Packers another potential swing tackle candidate with developmental potential inside. So I think the Packers getting 2 or 3, I think would be better offensive linemen in this draft. Just gives them that depth they need, that over the next couple of years they can develop these guys, and hopefully one of them comes through and ends up being a solid top tier prospect, because we've seen the Packers, their ability to draft offensive linemen outside of round 1 that end up becoming some of the best in the league. It happens time and time again. And so I think they need to take multiple offensive linemen, which Brugler has them doing here. Then round 4, we got a running back, Ray Davis from Kentucky. I'm pretty sure he's met with the Packers. I'm pretty sure. He's 5'8", 211. Packers Wire says short, compact runner who is ultra productive at every stop in college. Flashed ability as a tackle breaker, receiver, and blocker. Handled over 800 touches. Turns 25 during rookie season. So that is an interesting one with Josh Jacobs, now the running back, Aaron Jones gone, A.J. Dillon signed a super cheap deal. I do wonder what the Packers think about Emmanuel Wilson, who I think was pretty solid in his small amount of snaps last year. Unfortunately, went down with an injury near the end of last season. But I think that he's a really solid running back, which I think could mean the Packers can wait longer on a running back, but they could snag one here and sort of have some more competition there in the backfield outside of Josh Jacobs. Then round 5, you got cornerback Elijah Jones, Boston College. The Packers brought a lot of cornerbacks back with, Keyshawn Nixon coming back, with Corey Ballantyne coming back as well. Already having Jair, Eric Stokes, Carrington Valentine. I think that a corner in round 1 still could make sense to me, just because I think that they could overtake Valentine and Stokes on the other opposing side of Jair. That wouldn't shock me, but to get a little more depth makes sense. Then here we have round 6, another linebacker, Tyron Hopper. Gutekunst has talked about the need to bolster that depth, so that would be another linebacker here. Then round 6, we got defensive back Ryan Watts from Texas, bolstering that defensive back unit. Packers Wire says collegiate corner with elite athleticism and chance to transition to safety in the NFL. Started 24 games at Texas, Ohio State transfer. Certainly has the size to play safety. So the Packers need depth at safety. That would be their second safety, I believe, in this mock. Then Tulu Griffin, wide receiver. The Packers have a ton of receivers, but it wouldn't be surprising to see them go one later in the draft, because eventually these guys are going to need new contracts. And so I think it's always smart to at least get some new talent in there. But wide receiver, I would say, is the least biggest need in this draft. The need that is basically non-existent, considering how good the Packers have done at drafting players at wide receiver the past few seasons. Then, is this the final one? I believe it is. We got offensive lineman Nick Garguilo, South Carolina, 6'5", 318. So that's the third offensive lineman in the draft, which would go along with what the Packers have done in previous years. Outside of last season where they drafted no offensive linemen, I think they need to get back to it. Losing Bakhtiari, losing Runyon Jr., losing Yosh Nijman as well. They need to get some more depth there, develop some more prospects, and so it checks out. So overall, I like this mock draft. I understand the first pick. It's not my favorite pick, but at the same time, I see why it would make sense. We need some interior depth. I just would rather use it on maybe a more premium type position. But at the same time, considering the Packers seem somewhat confident in Rasheed Walker, Zach Tom, maybe because you already feel like you have your tackles set as starters, you think, well, we think those guys are going to start, so maybe it would be a waste to get another first-round tackle if you don't see them starting in the season, where drafting Powers Johnson you could get a potential starter there. So actually, the more I talk about it, the more it makes sense to me in my mind, where it's not a flashy pick, to get a center / guard round 1, but sometimes the flashiest picks aren't always the most valuable and the best picks. So I get it. I like this mock draft to go 3 offensive linemen. Think it's necessary. Maybe would have gone safety in round 2 potentially instead of edge. I like Edgar and Cooper. So overall, I like the mock draft. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'll leave the full mock draft in the description. But if you want more Packers content, make sure you turn on the post notifications, and I'll see you guys next time.